Let's start. This is a critique of 10 economic principles. In this short video, I will evaluate 10 economic principles that's very popular about 15 years ago, since a book published, and this was listed in a textbook. And I will evaluate, discuss these 10 principles based on the scientific economics. And we're going to evaluate whether those principles meet the condition to be a scientific conclusion. Now, review the conclusion from the scientific economics, and we have 4 criteria for economic conclusion to be considered a science, to be scientific conclusions. The first conclusion, the first criteria is that the conclusion, whatever you got, has to address the fundamental issue of economics. That is, how to efficiently allocate economic resource. The second criteria is that to be scientific, the conclusion must have a falsifiability. That means that it must have a way you can test it and verify it by argument or by real world economic history or data. The third point is that since we have a conclusion, if it's a science, it at least must have the ability to predict the future. It should also have the explanatory power, universal explanatory power to the past and the future, not limited by geography, not limited by culture, not limited by climate or political system of the country. The last criteria to determine if a conclusion is scientific is the fourth conclusion, which says that it's preferred that the conclusion comes from a deductive reasoning system instead of an inductive reasoning system. I'm not going to go through the detail of why those 4 criteria are considered the condition that you have to meet to be considered a scientific. This has been discussed in detail, and you can review this information from scientific economics. So let's start the first principle. Principle 1, people face trade-off. Trade-off is something that we regularly face. In order to take one thing, we make a choice, let go of something else. This is because we have limited resources, and so we need to make decisions to prioritize. And some of the examples given in typical textbook or in economics teaching is that we have a trade-off to make from to spend money on defense or spend money on consumption, and society face trade-off between pollution or high income level and also become efficiency and equity. Now let's go through these 4 criteria and evaluate this first principle. First, this principle does not in any way tell us how to efficiently allocate economic resources. Okay. It's of course it's common sense. We're going to trade off. We do one thing, we're going to do another thing. The second is, does this has a falsifiability? Well, if a trade-off is a statement, we believe it has falsifiability, then perhaps we already falsified. And if we can give a couple examples, counterexamples, then this will be falsified. One thing is, in the example, typical example saying efficiency and equity, not equity, but equality. Efficiency and equality is trade-off. So if you want a high efficiency in the economic system, inequality is for sure to be the results. But scientific economics has proven otherwise. So if efficiency and the equality is actually inconsistency in scientific economics. Because in scientific economics, the basic law, the first law is equal exchange of value. So if we adhere to this law in our practice in economic system, we naturally complete two things. First, the increasing the economic efficiency, resources get optimally allocated. And second, the equality will improve because a lot of people get rich, not because they are good businessmen, but because the deficiency of the economic system that causing certain fields, certain markets to be non-functional markets. So this is one disproof. The other is we take a walk in the park, we got a free good air and good sunshine, and we don't have trade-off. So it's not everything in life you have to trade off, and you trade off nothing to get sunshine. The sun doesn't ask you to pay back. And if you walk in somewhere has fresh air, and no one's asking you to pay for it. So we often get free lunch. Okay, so it's not always trade-off. We sometimes, in my life, I get a free lunch. I'm sure you, in various situations, you get free lunch. People invite you for free lunch, give you goodies. And so, in a sense, this statement is untrue, not true in all situations. So if it's, as we're using the criteria to be scientific, this is already falsified. And furthermore, it cannot predict the future using this or explain the past. And it's not coming from a deductive reasoning. So this principle of economics, principle one, it's not scientific. Okay, it's not science. All right, we finished the first one. Now let's evaluate the second one. The cost of an item is what we sacrifice to get it. People have regularly do a cost-benefit analysis of choices. They have before choose or prefer a particular course of action. There's opportunity cost. This is basically a different way of saying the opportunity cost concept in economics. So, of course, we have opportunity cost. We give up something for something. That's typically the case. Now, let's evaluate this using the scientific conclusion criteria to see if they're actually meeting the condition to be considered scientific. First, this is opportunity cost. It's just to define the things that you lose by making a choice is a opportunity cost. It's more of a definition. Okay, it doesn't tell you how to efficiently allocate the resource. Second, we need to consider whether this has the ability to be falsified. Has the falsifiability? Well, if a cost of item is what we sacrifice to get it, this appears to be a definition, So there's no way we can falsify it. It's a definition. You can call something defiant. So there's no way to falsify it. So this statement has no falsifiability. It cannot predict or explain the past. It's not coming from a deductive reasoning system. So this does not meet the condition to be scientific conclusions. So principle 2, the opportunity cost principle, is not scientific. All right, let's talk about the third principle 3. Rational people look to maximize their utility. Well, in theory, this assumption is fine. But whether this is scientific, let's talk about. Economists all over the world believe that people and business are rational. And therefore, they all make a best possible decision and have the most rational choice among various options available at their disposal. Moreover, it is also underlying assumption that people are very much aware of the sacrifice of resources, scarcity of resources in economy. All this prompt them to maximize utility. So consumer will go on consuming products and trying to maximize their utility. So producers, sellers, service provider often face dilemma of selling product at price below their average cost. This is common in industries such as aviation, cinema, etc. People are rational. They should continue to sell product until the marginal utility of the product becomes equal to their marginal cost. Okay. Let's think about whether this helps us to better to allocate our resource to reach maximum the best resource allocation. Well, this concept itself really doesn't help anybody to make decision better or causing the resource to be allocated better. Before anybody learning this principle, they already trying to maximize their utility. This just saying that people are doing it. Of course, not everyone is doing it 100% time. We see people giving out their properties, their service, free of charge. They have giving out donations. Even Bill Gates give out money, and they have Bill Gates foundations. So not all behaviors of people at a marketplace are what this describes. Okay, and so when we think about falsifiability, well, if we consider this has a falsifiability and it's already falsified, because there are so many people are doing things not to maximize their utility. And you can always find people are doing things that not maximizing their utility. And this principle 3, and you can't use it to predict any person's behavior. You can't explain particular. You may be able to explain some consumer behavior, but not always. Okay, it's not coming from a deductive reasoning system, so it does not meet the condition to be scientific. So this principle 3 of economics is not a scientific conclusion. Okay, let's talk about number 4, the principle 4 of economics. People respond to incentive. Participants in economy are rational, Hence, they respond to actual benefit that they may get from the consumption of product or service. Incentives are a sort of a reward for promoting consumption of goods service, and this may be in the form of free additional units of the product, increasing quantity of product at the same price, or giving price discounts on the product. Okay. Does this help us to allocate resource better? No, it doesn't tell us anything about how to allocate resource better. So it does not meet the first criteria. And does it has a falsifiability, can be falsified? Well, if we consider this has a falsifiability, people respond to incentive, then we can see whether we can find counterexamples. People may not respond to incentive. Well, we can always find in different economic systems, in different situations, people not respond to economic incentives. For example, we frequently buying goods when the price goes up, when it becomes more expensive. Do we supposed to buy less? Well, according to this, in general, if price goes up, we buy less. Is that true? If you observe all the products, you will find some products, the sales volume will increase when the price goes up. For example, during the COVID, a lot of goods were in high demand. Price goes up. Alcohol, for example, other things like sanitizers, price goes up. They run out of stock in the Walmart or in any other market, online market. They become very expensive, and other things like face mask become expensive. So we see that people not always respond to incentive. If you're saying price goes up, people will buy less. Well, I just show you people will buy more when the price goes up. And there are other cases when the product reduces their price, the people will still buy less. And contrary to what economists believe, that when the price drops, well, people are supposed to buy more. Well, of course, there are situations people will buy more, but not always. Just like when the price goes up, in generally speaking, that things become more expensive, people will buy less. But I just give you an example that people will buy more. And I'm certainly, if you read more into economics, you can find much more examples for this. So this principle number 4. First, it does not tell us how to allocate resource efficiently. Second, if we consider this as a statement is true and we already falsified it. Third, it cannot explain, it may be able to explain some behaviors, but cannot predict future because there are certain situations it cannot explain. It goes to the contrary to what it says. So it cannot make a good prediction. And it's not coming from a deductive reasoning system, so this is not a scientific conclusion. Okay, let's see economic principle 5. Trade makes everyone better off. Well, trade between people, business, country is essential for the betterment and the well-being of one and all. So an individual cannot produce each and everything for his consumption and he needs, he would be better off producing few items and leave the rest for others to produce. Of course, in theory, this seems to be a common sense and seems to be a good way to put it. But let's see from the 4 criteria whether this helps us to get up to better allocate economic resources. Okay, first, does this help us to get economic resource allocated more efficiently? Well, yes and no. If you look at today, this is year 2025. Trump, in the early year, in February, started a big trade war with China and all the other countries, increased tariff, importing duties dramatically. Well, if trade is so good for everybody, why does Trump start a trade war against to restrict and trying to restrict trade? Well, you can imagine there must be some harmful effect that U.S. president believe it's harmful to the U.S. economy. Then President Trump claimed that this free trade, this foreign trade, taking away U.S. jobs, taking away manufacturing capacity from the U.S. So this is one example. I'm not trying to say Trump is right or wrong, but almost every country want to pose some kind of import duties for certain kinds of products. You can look through other countries' import duty list, and you can ask them why they did, and they will tell you to protect their whatever industry they want to protect, so they believe that it's causing harm to their economy. So, first, let's go back to the 4 criteria. First, this principle does not tell us how to allocate economic resource efficiently. Because it says trade is better, it seems to tell us that we should all doing trade and it's good for everybody. But the reality shows otherwise. So this advice is perhaps not correct. So it's not the correct advice to give everybody, say, free trade or everything is better off. Well, maybe not. Okay, so it does not really tell you how to allocate the resource efficiently. Second, well, this statement has falsifiability. If we consider this statement is true, and as I just talked, we already falsified it, because most country that has some import duties or some restrictions to foreign trade. And if you ask them, those government, they have economics to back up their action. Their economists tell them, if you do this, if you free trade, you can hurt our this and that. So the reality is the trade makes everyone better off. It's not true. It may be true for some situation, but not always true. Okay, so if we consider this can be falsified, so the truth is, the fact is already falsified this statement. Okay, the third is you cannot use this to predict anything, because I already said, and our case already made that trade can make everyone better off sometime, and maybe can make everybody worse the other time. So trade is, you cannot just make prediction, because sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. So you really don't know. Okay, the last one, the criteria, last one is to say from this principle 5 is not from deductive reasoning. It's just a summary of some observations, someone's thinking. I think they have good wish that the trade will benefit everybody, but the reality is it's not. So principle 5 is not a scientific conclusion. Not only is not the conclusion is not a scientific conclusion, but the statement itself is questionable. Principle 6, markets are a good way of organizing economic activities. Free and fair markets are a must for the success of an economy. Now, the market force of demand and supply should act on their own to give us a price and a quantity equilibrium, where demand and supply are matched at a particular price point. It has been proven historically that government intervention in deciding the quantity or pricing of goods has been always failure in the long run. Moreover, the authoritative system of fixing price of products and service without studying the consumer demand pattern, consumer taste and preference, their willingness to pay the cost of production, etc., result in complete chaos and crash of market. Free market system is the best form of market. The participants have the upper hands in deciding what, how, where, and how much to produce and sell at the best possible price. Okay, this is basically a different way of saying Adam Smith's invisible hands. Basically, Adam Smith has said that, well, this is a book here. An inquiry into the nature and the cause of wealth of nation. Okay, that's the book. The one major conclusion of the book is we have invisible hands that in the market can allocate resources efficiently. Okay, let's use our 4 criteria to measure, to see whether this principle 6 meets condition to be scientific. First, it does tell us how to allocate resource efficiently. It clearly says the market is good, we should be all free, all left the market alone, not to interfere. Government should not do anything with the market, and then the market is super smart to getting us to where we should do to allocate efficiently any resources. Okay. However, this is false. Okay. As I will talk. Okay, for the second criteria, if this statement is true, we already falsified. Now, let me explain how this can be falsified. We all know the job market. And in job market, right now is 2025. In the United States, there are about 7 million people out of work. The unemployment rate is so high that the head of labor statistic was kicked off the job because Trump doesn't like the results that he get for the unemployment rate. So you can see that unemployment rate must be very high. I don't know how much, because the government doesn't want to tell us the truth. All right. It could be 7, could be 8, could be X numbers. But the truth is there's a lot of people unemployed and they couldn't find a job. Now, according to this principle, the market should allocate resources efficiently. Well, if it actually can allocate resource efficiently, why do we have so many people couldn't find job? And this itself says very clearly that the market, well, I agree, market can sometimes be a good way to organize economic activity, can allocate resource efficiently. I'm not totally against it. I'm just saying it's not always the case. Okay. Of course, it has said something correctly. In the past, when we look into the back, the Soviet Union and China, before China opened door and economic reform, China and Russia practiced a very rigid economic planning system that the government will decide the quantity and the price of goods and how much to produce and so on. And this is by history fact, it's already proven it's a failure. And I agree with that. So in a sense, market is better than that. Yes, it is better. But does the market solve all the allocation efficiency issue? No, it doesn't. The other example is education system. Almost all the developed country has a government interfered, managed, sponsored education system. Government will collect taxes, for example, in the US, then sponsor the basic education, like elementary school, middle school, high school. In many states, this could be compulsory. If you don't want your kids to go to school, the government official is going to ask you why you prevent your kids to go to elementary school. They're going to question you. So basically, they want everyone to go to elementary school, to make it compulsory. Why does it? Why the government does it? Why does government do that? And if the market is so well organized, can allocate all the resources efficiently, why don't we just let the market solve everything, give everybody the education? The fact is, look at how the system works when the government does not provide basic education. There are only rich kids can afford education. And this human capital inefficiency will, of course, hurt the economy and also hurt the people who lack the basic education. So the education market is not a functional market, or is not an efficient market. Or the other way to say it, in education market, that the market itself will not be able to allocate resources efficiently. Of course, I can stay on to say more, but I'm sure if you have critical thinking, you should be able to dig out more. For example, medical market, financial market. There are more markets out there. They are not allocating resources efficiently. According to scientific economics, there are two types of markets. One we call it efficient market. One is an inefficient market. And only in the efficient market that market works in terms of moving the resource for efficient allocation. Okay, so in a way, we just falsified this statement. So if this is a scientific conclusion, we already provide falsification that prove to you that this is false. This statement is completely not correct. Well, it may be correct sometimes, but it cannot be established a scientific conclusion. And third, it does not have the ability to be, since it make a blanket statement. It says, Basically, free market is better than anything, and the government should not intervene. And since this kind of blanket statement, we cannot use it to predict future or explain the past. It may be able to explain the past, but it maybe you're accidentally right. Okay, so explain, yeah, it can explain the past like a market is better than complete rigid planning economy when compared to that of the Russian or China before 1970. Okay, but basically it does not have predictive power. It's not coming from deductive reasoning. Therefore, principle 6, markets are a good way to organizing economic activity. It's not scientific. And let's move on to the next one. Principle 7, economic principle 7. Government has the resource to improve the outcome of the market. As we just talked about principle 6, don't you feel this is a contradiction? The number 6 say government should left market alone, right? The market can do so wonderful to allocate resource efficiently. And then the market and the principle 7 comes to say, oh, government has a resource to improve the outcome of our market, to allocate resources even better. Well, this is contradiction. Don't you see it? Okay, let's see what this says. Government is the most important form of institutional body that acts as an invisible hand to control the market force. It acts as invisible hands. Well, it should be visible hands, right? It works day and night to ensure that the market participants follow regulations, play the game of its rule. The government enforces property rights in the country. It encourages the people to produce and sell, participate in economy without fear of being cheated or suffering unfair loss. Okay. Government, yes, of course, it created a lot of laws to regulate the economy, to make the economy work in a way to allocate the resource efficiently, to practice fair trade. So I agree with that. Let's say if it is scientific. First, does this law actually help us, tell us how exactly to allocate economic resource efficiently? Well, it seems to say government should intervene the markets to enact laws to do something, but doesn't tell us exactly. So it doesn't really tell us how to allocate economic resource efficiently. Does this has falsifiability? Well, I don't know. If you believe it has the ability to falsifiability, and we can try to see if we can falsify it. I think this statement is true. Okay. The third criteria is prediction. We can't use this to make any prediction. It doesn't predict anything. The fourth point is it's not coming from a deductive reasoning system. So this is not a scientific law. Okay, even though the statement could be true that government has a resource to improve outcome of the market. Move on to the next one. Principle 8. The ability to produce goods or service decides the standard of living of country. The country of the world witness different standard of living that in turn decide their ability to healthcare facilities, standard of living, gadgets, houses, consumption patterns, life expectancies, larger variations in standard of living of people is because of the difference in their productivity level. Okay. More the people produce in each hour of work result in higher income and standard living. Okay. Does this principle tell you how to allocate resource efficiently? No, it doesn't. It tells you if you are able to produce more goods, you're going to enjoy a better life. You have more TVs, more cars, more houses. But doesn't tell you how to achieve that. Okay. Second, does this has falsifiability? Well, maybe if we can try to see if we can falsify this. Okay. I believe I can find examples to say that even though a country may have the most powerful machine manufactured to produce all the goods, but his standard of living may still not be good. Today is 2025. In this year, China appeared to be on the top list of all the nations in manufacturing capacity. Has more manufacturing power than the US. But I think most people, most economists, most regular people will agree that the people in the United States enjoy better life, has a better wealth, better consumer goods, better house, better cars, and so on. So basically, the United States, the people in the United States enjoy a better life than the people in China. This is a counterexample, right? Because China seems to produce more goods. A lot of goods, consumer goods particularly, that we purchase in United States are imported from either China or other countries, Vietnam, India, Japan, Europe, right? So not really many goods, consumer goods, are produced in the United States anymore. All right. Now, if we don't want to compare with the United States, we can use China to compare with some European countries. I'm sure I've seen this a couple times. Now, some European countries, I forgot the name, could be Germany, Switzerland, or whichever, enjoy much higher living standard than China. But they are not manufacturing powerhouse. They consume most goods made by other people. So by this kind of example, we just falsified this statement. So this statement is not true. Okay. Now, can we use to predict future or explain the past? Well, maybe in some situations, but not for the case I just gave. So it lacks of the power for prediction because it's not reliable. It's not, this conclusion is not coming from a deductive reasoning system. So it does not meet the 4 criteria to be scientific conclusion. Therefore, principle 8, the ability to produce goods and service decides the standard of living of a country, is not scientific conclusion. Okay, we have 2 more to go. Number 9, excessive printing of money by the government resulting in the rising prices. Okay, I think this is what most people will believe true. Okay, excessive printing of money by the government of nation resulting in the loss of value of that currency, purchasing power goes on reducing, resulting in constant spiral pricing rise of goods service, the rise of price resulting in inflation in the economy. Due to reduced purchasing power, more and more money is required to buy the same quantity of goods service. Therefore, a government needs to have a strict control mechanism regarding printing and supply of money in the economy. And this is ensure the inflation trends in the economy are temporary and stay under control. All right. Does this meet the first criteria to be scientific conclusion? Does this help us, tell us how to allocate economic resources? Well, seems not. It just say, well, government don't print too much money, right? It doesn't really tell you how to do. It doesn't tell you exactly how to allocate resources efficiently. It seems to be you don't print too much money, but where is too much, where is too little, and how to print it. It doesn't say anything. Okay. Can this be falsified? Yes, I can falsify it. According to scientific economics, you can print unlimited money without causing rising price, causing the big inflation that we're afraid of. Actually, according to scientific economics, inflation is necessary for economic efficiency. But inflation at a certain degree, and according to scientific economics, you can actually calculate to get an exact number for different situations, for different countries, what is the optimal inflation rate. And you can go to review my lecture, my text notes, my book. All right. Of course, the book hasn't published yet, but will soon in the next future years. I will give you a couple examples to show that when government printing a lot of money, it does not cause inflation or does not cause serious inflation. Okay. First, one example is post-World War II Japanese economy. The other is Germany's economy. These two countries are totally destroyed by the war. And when they rebuilt, they have enjoyed 10 to 20 years rapid economic growth, heavy investment, government, excessive printing of government money, all right? Heavy loans from the government, private sectors. But they did not experience unlimited, uncontrolled inflation. This phenomenon actually supports the conclusion of scientific economics. You can issue as much currency as you want, as long as you back up the currency with the future goods or forever goods. And future goods or forever goods, what are they? They are, for example, gold, precious metal, or infrastructure. Particular infrastructure is even better than gold. As I discussed in scientific economics, you can learn it. Okay, I'm not going to go become a lecturer of scientific economics here. So I just want to point some of the conclusion here and the finding here to disprove this statement. So basically, this statement has been falsified. And the third, can this used to predict future? Because this statement has been falsified, it cannot predict future correctly 100% time. So in scientific way to put it, it cannot be used to predict future or cannot be used to explain past. It may be able to explain some of it, but not always. And this does not come from a deductive reasoning logical system. Therefore, principle 9 is not a scientific conclusion. Okay, again, excessive printing of money by the government results in rising price is false. Okay, it's not scientific. Number 10. Maybe this one is my favorite of all the principles. Okay, principle number 10 for economics, economic principle number 10. Trade-off between unemployment and inflation. This is basically a statement of Phillips curve, right? If you learn in economics, you have chapter specifically discuss this. Every country experiences a short-term trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Inflation trends in the economy results in higher demand for goods and service. This is due to the excessive money supply in the hands of people. Higher demand results in further increase in price, as well as pressure on producers to supply more. In order to supply more, they hire more people, therefore the unemployment level goes down, and a lot of people get work. The level of demand for goods usually remains in the control of government and policymaker. By twisting the policy, they can alter the spending level, tax level, money supply to influence the total demand of goods service. Okay. This is a Keynesian theory, right? Keynesian ask government to go to deficit so they can spend the money to pop up the gross domestic demand, the domestic market demand. So this way can achieve higher GDP growth rate and bring down the unemployment. But according to historical data and the Phillips curve, this could also increase the inflation rate. So one side is the unemployment rate, one side is inflation rate. Well, you take this up, that down, and take that up, that down. So it's like, what do you see? You can get both, right? Okay, let's use scientific economic criteria to see if this is a scientific conclusion. First, does this tell you exactly how to allocate economic resource efficiently? Well, no, it doesn't really tell you exactly. It just says there's a trade-off. It doesn't say if inflation higher is better or unemployment lower is better. It doesn't say anything. Does this mean the second condition? Does it have falsifiability? Yes, I believe I can falsify it. Okay, let's talk about how to falsify principle 10. Trade-off between unemployment and inflation. According to scientific economics, we can reach full employment without inflation, according to scientific economics. You can read the chapter on full employment, domestic issuance of currency, and those are the chapters or lectures talk about how to reduce unemployment, get full employment, and without much inflation. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail how those scientific conclusion was proved or deducted, and you can see the lecture. Now, I just want to give 2 examples to disprove the trade-off, the Phillips curve. Actually, the Phillips curve you can use a statistic of different economies to study it, and you will find it does not always hold true. Particularly from the scientific economics, we can find two country example. The same country example. That one is the post-World War II Japanese economy. And they have enjoyed roughly 10 to 20 years full employment. The unemployment rate is extremely low. It's like 1% or something. And they have almost no inflation, or our inflation is under control. Okay. Same to Germany after the World War II. Why? Because they are heavily investing during this 10 and 20 years to what in scientific economics we call future goods or forever goods, which basically referring to infrastructure, bridges, roads, rail lines, schools, universities, housings, all this construction, the structure of society that can last over 100 years old. A lot of those are built during those times. When you're doing those kind of development work, you don't experience the Phillips curve described here. So this is from the historical facts and also from theoretical reasoning. We disproved or we falsified this statement. And because this statement is falsified, it cannot be used to predict future or explain the past because it lacks of the accuracy. It's already being falsified. So the prediction or explanation are not reliable. So also because this is not coming from a deductive reasoning system. The Phillips curve is coming from inductive system, inductive reasoning. And Phillips curve, they studied I believe it's England or Ireland economic data, and build up this Phillips curve. And based on the economic statistic, and he find this relationship. So this is not from a deductive reasoning, it's from inductive reasoning. So we already know inductive reasoning is likely to be false. It's more easier to be disproved. So for principle number 10, first, it's not scientific conclusion. We talked about it. First, then the second is that the trade-off between unemployment and inflation does not always exist, because we give you examples and we give you theories that both falsified this statement. Okay. So far we discussed 10 principles of economics, 10 economic principles. Most of those don't give accurate, most of those statements are either false or are not accurate or being falsified, or they don't really tell you how to allocate economic resource efficiently. So for the purpose of economic pursuit, that we're trying to allocate economic resource efficiently to pursue this goal, this 10 principle has little value. And it may help you to think of something differently. But many of these statements are false, as I already talked about. So to make this 10 statement economic principle is misleading people to have wrong ideas and incorrect knowledge to understand economics. It's wrong. It's wrong to teach this. It's wrong to believe all this stuff. I already proved it. Okay, thank you.